Hey everybody, welcome back to our video. In this video, we're gonna be learning about exception handling. So before going into the video, I would appreciate you guys liking and subscribing the video, and feel free to comment. So let's go into the topic. So first, let's see what are the two types of exception. So there are two types, syntax errors and exceptions. Syntax errors are considered as the most common complaint that comes by the computer. So it occurs whenever the code is not written accordingly to the computer. So if you write it wrong, basically kind of like indentation or something. So they're basically kind of like syntax errors. And now exceptions. Errors detected during execution are called exceptions. So to prevent that, we can use try block and exception, which will not stop the normal flow of the program. What is this normal flow? So basically, this normal flow, nothing but the flow of the program. So basically, whenever you have an error, the program does not work, right? It's gonna stop it or make the program to not work or stop it from completing its task. But exceptions, if we use the try block and exception, it's not gonna do that. It's gonna continue the program and it's gonna do its job. So that's what it's gonna do. And there are basically four levels of exception. Basically, they're try, except, finally, and else. I'm gonna give you a basic overview for now. What are these? So try is nothing but it's gonna try a piece of code or block of code. Except is gonna say if try is not true, you have to do this. And finally is gonna do everything whatever you do always. So let's say I have something, try is fail or something, and except also fail or something kind of like that, but finally every time prints. So it basically does always. Whenever you have finally, it's gonna come always. And now else. So else occurs only when try is true. So whenever the try statement is true, it's gonna go to the else statement. I know the else is kind of like the if else, but they're kind of similar too. They both are similar. And now we can see an example. So first, I'm gonna have a variable named a, which is gonna have the value 10, and b is 5. And now I'm gonna have the try block of 10. So try is gonna say try, let's take a divided by b, and I'm gonna store this in a variable named r, which is basically a result kind of thing. So you can take whatever you want, and then I'm gonna have my except. So basically, what should I have in this except? So whenever I write like this, it's not gonna work because you have to write an exception. So what exception we will come or will come in there? So we don't know. So instead, if you don't know, you can just write exception. So if you know, which we're gonna see in a second, you can see the thing and understand what type of exception is yours. But for me now, I don't know, so I'm gonna just write exception. So this is already predefined by Python, so it's already defined. You can just type capital E. The case matters too, the capital case of E, so that matters. And now, so if that thing doesn't happen, it's gonna print us false. So basically, it's gonna say it can't or cannot divide by 0 because the statement is only gonna fail when it's dividing by 0. So that's how this thing will work. And now we can have our else statement, or you don't even have to, but for now I'm not even gonna have it, but that's still gonna work for us. And now it's not gonna print us anything. Remember, it's not gonna print us anything because we don't have the else statement. So let me give you an else statement right here, else, and then it's gonna print us the r. So basically we're gonna print r, and we're gonna see finally statement in a second. And now if I run this, as you see, 2, 10 divided by 5 is 2, so that works. And let's see finally statement. So finally statement occurs whenever you do anything, even though you do the wrong mistake, it still comes. So let's see an example. I'm gonna say I always print. So I always print. So that's what we have in the finally statement. And now let's say if the b is 0, which means it's gonna come in error, right? So it's gonna say as false, and then I always print. As you see, false and always print. And I can even type 5 in this, and it's gonna come as 2, and I always print. As you see, so finally block executes always. So it executes always. So that's what finally block used for. And we understand now what are these try statements and everything, right? And now let's see the errors. So there are a lot of errors in Python. So this is a hierarchy level of what an error is. So basically it starts from an object, a base exception. So basically this is what we use over there. So let me give it let me go there, and as you see, this is the thing we use, exception. So that's what we use over there. As you see, exception, so that's what we use. So basically exception covers all these. So arithmetic error, assertion error, attribute error. I know these are a lot of errors, but we don't have to learn all of those, but I'm gonna give you some examples. So it starts. So basically here, guess what error we got? So if I have that 0, so if we just take a guess, we got the 0 division error. So it's basically under the arithmetic error. So basically that occur when you divide by 0. So as you see, I am dividing by 0, and if I print this, it's gonna print us false and everything else. So that is what happened in that case. So that is kind of like a bad practice of using these exception handling, because you have to know what error you're getting, so that you're confident that this error, okay, I understand, kind of thing. So that's why you have to use a specific error. If you want, you can just go search in Google saying, what are the errors in Python or something kind of like that, and then you're gonna get all these. So that's how these are. So I'm gonna say some of these. So let's take let me explain 4 of these. So first we're gonna use the 0 division error. So this time I have a variable a and b equals 0, and now I have my try block, which is gonna just try a piece of code, and then it's gonna have a variable r, a divided by b. So basically, if you just take a guess, it's gonna give us an error because we don't have the except statement. And now we can use the error. So basically, before we use 0 division error, or to say exception, like this, right? But this time, what do you use? So you just write 0 division. Yep, you write this kind of like this. So even the capital case matters. So if you keep C, as you see, 0 division error is not defined. So even the case matters. And now that's how this thing will work. And now you can do whatever you want in this. So let me say this is an error. So this is an error. So that's what it's gonna print us. And now if I run this, it's gonna print us this is an error. As you see, this is an error. So that's what it's gonna do in 0 division error. So now let's see another one called module not found error. So it's basically under the import error. So basically this occurs when you import a module that doesn't even exist. So let's say let's import something, because something does not even exist, and even I can give in a lowercase, anything works, but something does not even exist. And then I have to change this to something else. So let me change it to module not found error. So, and now if I run this, we can get this is an error thing. So as you see, it's printing us this is an error. So let's say I try 2 things in this, like let's say I try even r equals a divided by b or something. So instead you can even have multiple exceptions. So you can have any number of exceptions inside this, but you have to have something like this. So first you have to have the parentheses in them, so the syntax matters, or you won't get it. So you have to have the parentheses and the errors you want. And now modulo found error, I want 0 division error too. So whenever I type a divided by b instead of this, it's gonna go to 0 division error, and it's gonna say in this one. And many people make a lot of mistake on this one. So let me show you an example what people make mistake on. So let's say I have something like this, and it's gonna say print I don't know, because we don't know the error right here. And then let me copy this right there, and then let me put that instead. So basically it's correct because you can use multiple exceptions, that doesn't matter. But what is the wrong mistake over here? So if we just take a guess, it's gonna go to this one. Why? We already know the error, so we want it to go here. So it goes like in a hierarchy way. So as first we have exception right here. So if you have this under this, which is basically, let me cut that and paste it right here, then it's gonna go to this one. So basically it's gonna go from the top to the end. So it's gonna go from modulo found error or 0 division error to the exception. So if any of those doesn't match, it's gonna see this exception. If any of those doesn't match, it's not gonna print anything, which means the try catch is true. So that's what this is. So we know 2 errors, which are modulo found error and 0 division error. So now let's see some other errors you can even use. So let me delete that real quick because I don't need this in here. And now let me delete that. And now let's see. So we have something called index error. So index error occurs when it's basically kind of like index out of range, which is occurs only in sets, lists, or arrays, or something kind of like that. So I'm gonna create an array first, which is basically a list. I'm creating a list right here, and then have these numbers, and then I can access this. So first, instead, we're gonna access something that does not exist. So let's gonna store a variable called r, and then access something that does not exist inside this. So first, as we see, we have the indexes 0, 1, 2, and we don't have 3. So we're gonna access 3, and then it's gonna go to the except statement. So we're gonna have index error. Oh wait, I typed indentation, index error. As you see now, if it works, and now if I run this, it's gonna print us this is an error. As you see, because I'm accessing the third variable, which is not even there. So if I just access 2, it's gonna not print anything. As you see, it didn't print us anything. So that's how this index error works. And now let's see something called name error. So basically, name error occurs when you don't type the name correctly. So let me take r equals ab. So actually, I have the variable a, and ab is not defined, as you see. So that's gonna occur as name error. So let me change that to name. And now if I run this, it's gonna print us the name error. As you see, this is an error. I can even change it to name error, and that's gonna still work. As you see, this is a name error. So that's how these things work in Python, and this is a lot important topic, because even whenever you want to do jobs in this, you have to use this a lot. So this is a lot important. So now let's see a topic called custom exception. So custom exception is nothing but you can create or raise your own exception, which is basically you can create or you can do something to get your own exception. So let's see an example for that. For this, you have to have a class, which is I'm gonna name it custom exception. So custom exception, and then let me correct that spelling right there. And now I have to inherit, because without inheriting we can write the code in this. I mean, you can, but it's gonna take a long process. But we're gonna inherit. So we're gonna inherit something called exception. What is exception? So exception is basically predefined by Python. So it's already a class, as you see, a class. So it already exists by Python. So we're basically inheriting or using it right now. And now we can have a pass statement because we don't have any code. So now let's see a class called adding. So I'm gonna take a class. So basically the name itself says it's gonna add something. So I'm gonna have a and b. So it's basically gonna add us two variables, which are a and also b. And now I'm gonna use these. So but I want the user to not provide b as 0. So if b equals 0, then it's gonna raise the custom exception. And then it's gonna say then it's gonna return or something like kind of like that. It's gonna raise something like this custom exception, and then we're gonna have our thing what we want in this. So what are these parentheses here? So basically they say what we want to say to the user. So okay, I'm gonna raise this exception, but what should I say to him, kind of thing. So I'm gonna say cannot have 0. So that's what we want the user to not do. Else it's gonna basically do nothing. But we can even add if you want, but we don't want it right now. So I can have a try block right here saying it's gonna try a piece of code, and now we can have our accessing, or which are basically we're calling the function. And now I'm gonna call, let's take 1 and also 6. So basically this is not gonna print us anything because there's no error. But instead we wanted to print us an error, so we're gonna give 0, and now we're gonna have our except statement. So in this we are not gonna use the what is this, 0 division error or something kind of like that, but we're gonna use our custom exception, which we already defined right there. And now as p, which means we are renaming it to kind of like p. And now if I print p, it should print us the custom exception. So let me run this real quick. And now if I run this, as you see, cannot have 0. I can even change cannot have 1 or something. I can even keep something like false or something. As you see, cannot have 1. So basically that's what this is custom exception is. So basically, as you see, we never use something like predefined exceptions. As you see, whenever there's no custom exception or something inside this is depend all on this class. So this class is basically going to inherit this one, and then it's going to use its properties. So this is adding, handling, and if b is equal to 0, it's going to raise the custom exception, and the text is cannot have 0, and then as you see as p. So this part is kind of important. If you don't have it and you print custom exception, it's going to print the location of it, but that's not what we want, right? So that's why we need to have as p. And now we understand what is custom exception. So now let's see something called exception chaining. So the word itself says that it's going to chain something. For that, so for this we have to have something called raise. I know we already used it, but this time it's going to be kind of different too. So first we have to have our function. I'm gonna name it add because it's gonna add two numbers, a, and this time I'm gonna make a small mistake for this video, and now as you see I'm gonna use a plus b. So the mistake is I don't have any b right there, so it's gonna give us an error. But we're gonna have this in try block because we have to try this, right? And now I have to have my except statement. So basically we are using the try and except inside a function now. And now I don't know what exception I'll get, so I can just use exception, and now I can just use this. So for this I'm gonna raise e. So what is e right there? So for that we have to use as e. I know it's kind of hard to understand what am I saying right here. So basically we're just renaming this to e so that it's not going to print as the location, and it's going to say what is happening inside the code. So let's say if we don't have this part. So if we don't have this part, the person who calls this, or the thing which calls this, a variable, it's going to be affected and it's going to come an error. So it's going to stop the flow of the program. So that's what we have to do. We don't have to have that. So that's what we're going to do. And now we're going to have a try block, which is going to add something. So we're going to access. So let's say 1, okay? So we are passing 1, and then we don't have b, so we're gonna have an exception. So let me give that, and we still don't know what exception we'll get, right? So we can just name it as p because we have to print the exception. We know we get the exception, but we want to print the exception. So whenever I run this, it's gonna print us the exception. So it's gonna basically print as name b is not defined. Why? Because as you see, b is not defined. So let me give you what actually is happening. So basically we have a function which has something called a parameter, and now it's gonna try some block of code called j equals a plus b. So j is basically a variable that's gonna store. A is a value right there, b is not defined. And now we're gonna have our except statement, which is gonna have an exception in it saying exception should be changed as e, and then whenever some people access this, it's gonna raise this part. So it's gonna raise e, which is basically name b is not defined. So that's what it's gonna raise. You can even give a false exception saying floating point error, and then you can just type whatever you want. So anything works. So that's how this thing will work. And now we are trying this block of code. We're giving it 1 by calling, and now we have our except method right here saying exception as p. So it's gonna changing the variable to p, and then it's gonna print p. So basically it's chaining. So this try block is changed to this part, and now if I have multiple of these, it's gonna be chaining to that. So that's what exception chaining is. So this is the basics of exception handling. So that's it for today's video. See you in the next video. Until then, bye bye.